sat on the porch of the rental cabin after dinner, working on the last few bites from my plate. The sun had gone down earlier, and the woods sat quiet around me. I was 34, out here by myself for a few days on this solar panel inspection job. The cabin was far from everything, with just a gravel road leading in and out. No close neighbors except Pete, an older man about a mile down that road. I had seen him from a distance twice. He seemed like a friendly enough guy, the type who lived simply out here and waved when our paths came close. I was used to being alone. It did not bother me at all. I was practical about things, observant from years of working with my hands on roofs and setups for solar panels. I finished eating and sat there for a while, looking out at the trees. The air felt cool on my arms. Evening sounds were around me, crickets starting up, a light breeze moving through the leaves. I was not in any hurry to go inside. I just sat and rested after the long day of measuring areas and checking the property lines. Then a branch snapped out near the tree line. I looked over in that direction but did not see anything move. It was probably a deer or something like that. They came through at night looking for food. I listened for a bit longer, turning my head to catch any other sounds. The woods stayed still after that. No big deal. I went back to thinking about the next day's work. I would finish the last section of the property and then head out in a couple more days. After some time, I started to clear my plate and get ready to head in for the night. Then I heard the footsteps. They were slow, moving toward the cabin from the direction of the trees. It sounded like someone stepping carefully, placing each foot to keep the noise low, trying not to be heard or found. I stood up from the chair and looked around the yard. The porch light only reached a short distance. I could not see any person or shape out there. The steps continued, soft on the dirt and leaves, getting a little closer. I watched the tree line for a full minute. Nothing showed up in the shadows. I decided it was better to go inside. I opened the door, stepped in, and locked it behind me. Inside the cabin, I stood by the front window and looked out again. The footsteps had stopped. Everything looked the same as before: dark trees, empty yard space. I checked my phone. No signal, same as it had been for the last 3 days. 0 bars. There was no one to call anyway, and nothing clear enough to report, just some sounds at night. I walked through the small cabin and checked the windows one by one. They were all locked. I checked the back door too. Locked. I sat in the main room for a while in the chair. It stayed quiet. No more sounds came. After that, I got ready for bed and lay down with my clothes still on. It took some time to fall asleep because my mind kept going back to the footsteps, but I did. I figured it was just one of those nights in a remote spot. I woke up around 3 in the morning. The cabin was completely dark. I lay there in bed listening for a minute. Then I heard the front doorknob turning. It was slow turns, like someone outside was testing it to see if it would open. Not hard or loud, just quiet tries back and forth. I stayed in bed at first and listened carefully. The knob moved a few times with small clicks. No knocking or talking, just those testing movements. I got up without making much noise, took the kitchen knife from the counter, and sat on the floor against the wall next to the door. I held the knife in my hand and waited there. I thought about what was happening. If it was someone who needed help, they would have said something by now. This felt like checking to see if the place was empty or easy to enter. I kept my breathing even and stayed still. The sounds went on for about 10 or 15 minutes. Small turns, pauses, then another try. Then they stopped completely. I sat there on the floor until the sky started to get light outside the window. My back and legs got stiff from sitting on the hard floor, but I did not move much. When it was brighter outside, I stood up slow and opened the door a little at first. I looked around the yard before stepping out fully. There was a boot print in the dirt near the front step. It was fresh and clear in the morning light. The size was bigger than my own prints from the day before, and the tread pattern looked different. I stood there looking at it for a while. This was something real. Someone had been right here. I took out my phone and took several pictures of it from different angles, close up on the tread, from the side to show the depth, and one from farther back. No signal to send them anywhere, but it was good to have the record on the phone. I walked around the outside of the cabin to check other spots in the dirt. I did not find more clear prints, just some disturbed areas that could have been from animals or wind. Back inside, I made some coffee on the small stove and sat at the table drinking it slow. I thought about the night again. The branch snap, the careful footsteps, the doorknob turning, and now the boot print. It was time to do something about it instead of waiting. Driving straight to town seemed like the straightforward choice, but Pete was only about a mile down the road. It might be useful to check on him first. He knew the area well. If something unusual was going on, two people could think it through better than one. Safety in numbers made sense for a practical step. I put some water bottles, a few food bars, the knife, and my phone into a small bag. I made sure the cabin was locked up tight and started walking down the gravel road. The morning was quiet. Birds were calling from the trees here and there. The gravel felt solid under my boots as I walked. I stayed in the middle of the road and looked at the trees on both sides every so often. The road had some gentle curves, and the trees came close in places with low branches. I walked at a steady pace, not too fast. My mind went over the details from the night, the way the footsteps sounded like they were trying to stay hidden. The slow testing of the doorknob, the clear boot print. I kept my eyes open for anything out of place along the road. A couple of squirrels ran across at one point. That was normal. The walk took longer than I expected because of the curves and the uneven gravel. It felt closer to 2 miles by the time I saw Pete's house ahead. His place was small, similar to the cabin, with tools and some wood stacked neat out front. His truck was parked to the side. I went up to the front door and knocked. "Pete, it's Dale from up the road." I waited. No answer came. I knocked again, a bit louder, still nothing. The door was unlocked. That seemed off. From what I had seen of Pete those 2 times, he struck me as the type who locked things up. I opened the door and called out again before stepping inside. The chair by the kitchen table was overturned on the floor. A phone lay smashed on the ground with pieces scattered around it. I looked through the rooms carefully. No blood anywhere that I could see. No one was there. Some drawers in the kitchen were open, and things inside looked shifted like someone had gone through them in a hurry. The bedroom was empty. The small bathroom was empty too. Pete was not home. I stood in the main room for a while and took it all in. This looked like trouble. Someone had been here and done something that caused a struggle. Pete was gone now. I did not move things around or touch much. I went back outside and closed the door behind me. My phone still showed no signal, no way to call for help from here. The truck back at the cabin should have enough gas to reach town. I had not checked the gauge closely the last few days, but it should be fine for the drive. I started walking back the way I came along the gravel road. I moved at a steady pace again. The road felt longer this time. I thought about what I had seen at Pete's place. The overturned chair, the smashed phone, the open drawers, the empty house. It was not normal. I kept watching the sides of the road as I walked. When I got back to the cabin, I got my keys and started the truck. It ran fine at first. I drove down the gravel road toward the highway. The afternoon sun was out, and the truck bounced along on the rough surface. I checked the mirrors now and then. No other cars passed. After some miles, the engine started sputtering. I looked down at the gas gauge. It was lower than I thought it would be. The truck coughed a few times and then stopped completely. I pulled it over to the side of the road and tried to start it again. It did not turn over. I got out and opened the hood to look. There was a fuel smell coming up. I crouched down and checked underneath the truck. It looked like a rock or piece of debris from the road might have hit the fuel line and caused a small leak. I tried starting it a few more times from the driver's seat. Nothing happened. Daylight was still good, but it would start to fade in a few hours. I stood by the truck and thought about the options I had. I could stay right there with the truck and wait to see if someone drove by on the road. That might take a long time out here in this remote area. I could start walking the gravel road all the way to the highway. It was a long distance, but it was open and I knew the way. Or I could cut through the woods toward the fire lookout tower that I remembered seeing marked on the map at the rental office. It would take me to higher ground where I could look around the area better. Those towers sometimes had a radio that worked for emergencies. I went over the choices in my head step by step. Staying with the truck meant depending on someone happening to come along. The road kept me out in the open the whole way. The woods route gave some cover from view and a clear goal to reach. The high spot and possible radio seemed like a useful next step. I took the water, some jerky, the knife, the flashlight, and my phone from the truck. I locked the doors out of habit and stepped off the gravel road into the trees, heading in the direction of the fire tower. I stepped off the gravel road into the trees, heading in the direction of the fire tower. Right as I pushed through the first line of brush, I saw him. The man stood about 50 yards away at the edge of the tree line, half hidden behind a thick trunk. Medium build, dark jacket, blood on the front that looked fresh even from that distance. He did not move fast. He just watched. I froze for a second, heart kicking hard in my chest. Then I turned and moved deeper into the woods without looking back again right away. My hand stayed steady on the bag strap, but my mind went through the facts. I had not seen this man clearly before. The blood on his jacket and the way he stood there watching me made it clear he was dangerous. This was not a hiker or someone lost. Combined with the boot print at the cabin, the sounds at the door, and Pete missing, it added up. Someone had done real harm nearby. No time to think too much. I picked up my pace and headed uphill. The woods closed in thick right from the start. Branches scraped my arms as I pushed forward. I kept my steps as quiet as I could manage, but my breathing felt loud in my own ears. I remembered the map from the rental office showing the tower on higher ground a few miles in. I followed a small slope upward, boots sinking into soft dirt patches. Every few steps I glanced over my shoulder. No sign of him yet, but that image of him standing there stuck with me. Practical thought, keep moving, use the terrain. High ground at the tower might give me a chance to spot him coming or find a radio. I walked for a good stretch, placing one foot carefully after the other. The ground was uneven with roots and small rocks. I looked down often to avoid tripping. The bag on my shoulder had the water, jerky, knife, flashlight, and phone. It was not too heavy, but I felt it with each step. I took small sips from the water bottle every so often. The liquid went down easy, but I made sure not to drink too much at once. The truck back on the road with its fuel line leak was still in my mind. I had not checked the gauge closely enough the last few days. Bad luck, but there was nothing to do about it now. Better to focus on the next section of woods ahead. I stepped over a fallen log and pushed through some thicker bushes. My boots made soft sounds on the leaves. I could not avoid all the noise, but I tried to keep it low. After about 20 minutes, I hit a small creek bed. The ground there was rocky, and the water trickled along low. I followed it for a while because it seemed to head uphill. Creeks like this often led toward ridges. My boots got wet in the shallow parts, but it was fine. The sound of the water covered some of my own steps. I stopped once, crouched low behind a rock and listened hard. Just the creek and distant birds, nothing else. I drank a little more water from my bottle and kept going. The sighting of the man at the start of the woods kept pulling at my thoughts. He knew I was moving into the trees. He was probably already behind me somewhere. I stayed near the water for a bit longer, then moved away from it when the slope changed. The slope grew steeper after that. I stayed near the ridgeline where the trees thinned a bit. This gave me longer sight lines ahead. My legs burned from the climb, but I was used to physical work from installing solar panels. Carrying equipment up roofs and balancing on slopes had prepared me for this kind of effort. I checked my phone out of habit. Still no signal. The battery was okay for now. I put it back in my pocket and continued. Shadows stretched longer between the trunks as the sun dropped lower. I heard the first branch snap behind me, not too close but clear enough. I stopped and turned to look, nothing in sight. It could be him or it could be an animal. I waited a full minute, standing still and listening. No more sounds came. I started walking again, but I checked behind every 10 minutes or so. The woods felt heavier around me now. I followed the ridge for a longer stretch. The ground was firmer up there. I placed my feet on the flatter parts when I could. Then the ground dipped down in a way I did not expect. It went into a small valley. I had taken a wrong turn. I stopped and looked around. The light was getting dimmer. I doubled back, retracing my steps for about 15 minutes. That lost some time. My mind stayed on the practical side. No point getting frustrated. Just correct the path and keep going. I found the ridge again and stayed closer to it this time. I moved slower for a bit to make sure I stayed on course. Another branch snapped behind me, farther off. I stopped. Then I saw a small patch of leaves that looked disturbed, like someone had stepped through recently. The marks were fresh. I did not see the man, but it made me move a bit faster. I stayed low in spots where the undergrowth was thick. I thought about Pete's house. The overturned chair, the smashed phone. Whoever did that was likely still out here. I kept my knife handy in my belt, and the pipe would come later, but for now I had what I had. I kept checking the ground for good footing. The light faded more as time passed. I turned on the flashlight for short checks ahead, then turned it off to save the battery. I followed the creek bed again in places where it ran parallel to the ridge. The water helped me stay oriented. My feet were tired, but I kept placing one in front of the other. I ate a piece of jerky while walking. It tasted salty and dry in my mouth. I drank the last of the first water bottle. Dehydration was a real thing out here. I needed to find more water soon. I scanned the area for any puddles or streams as I went. I heard footsteps then, not right behind but at a distance, slow and careful ones like the ones at the cabin door. I moved into thicker brush and waited with my back against a log. The steps came closer then stopped. I stayed still for a long time. When they did not return, I started moving again, but I changed direction slightly to put more distance. I made another mistake soon after. The ridge split and I took the left fork thinking it led higher. After 20 minutes it dropped off into thicker woods. I doubled back again. More time lost. The sky was dark now. Night had come fully. I kept going. My hands were steady, but my thoughts turned over the facts. The boot print at the cabin. Pete gone. The truck stalled. Now this walk. Small actions. Keep moving toward the tower. I came to a spot with old fallen trees. I climbed over them carefully one at a time. Then I heard leaves rustling behind me. I dropped low into some undergrowth and lay flat. I controlled my breathing slow and quiet, in through the nose, out through the mouth. My legs started to cramp from holding still. I counted in my head, 1 to 60, then again. I did not move. A flashlight beam swung far behind me, cutting through the trees. It moved left and right, searching. It did not hit my spot. The beam went away after a minute. I stayed down for another 5 minutes, counting the whole time. The cramp in my calf eased a little. When it was clear, I got up slow and kept going. The close call stayed with me. I focused on mechanical things. Breathe steady, place feet quiet, watch the ground. I was not panicked, just careful. I needed to reach the tower. That was the next step. I walked for what felt like another hour. The woods were full dark now. My flashlight was on more often, but I kept it pointed low. I came across an old woodshed half fallen over. The roof had collapsed years ago. I looked inside with the light. There was a heavy length of pipe leaning against the wall, maybe from some old repair. It was rusted but solid. I picked it up. It felt good in my hand, heavy enough to swing if needed. Not a big moment. Just a practical find, better than nothing. I carried the pipe in one hand and the flashlight in the other. My mouth was dry. I found a small puddle near a rock and used my shirt to filter some water into the empty bottle. It was not clean, but it would do. I drank a little. The taste was earthy. I kept moving. The ridge climbed higher. I hoped the tower was near. My legs ached from the uneven ground, hands a bit shaky from the long day. The stops and the sounds earlier made my body feel worn. I paused every so often to listen. Sometimes there was nothing, sometimes a faint sound far off. I continued. I heard the snapped branch again, closer this time. I picked up my pace, staying near the ridgeline. Disturbed leaves showed in spots where I shone the light. Someone was back there. I did not look for long, just noted it and kept going. I made another wrong turn in the dark. The slope felt right, but after 30 minutes it led to a dead end with thick brush. I doubled back, breathing a bit harder. Time was slipping. Night was full on. I pushed through. The pipe helped me push branches aside. I listened every few minutes, sometimes nothing. Sometimes a faint rustle far off. I stayed focused on the next 10 steps, then the next. The tower had to be close. I remembered the map, put it on the high point. After more walking, I saw the base of the fire tower through the trees. It was dark, but the metal structure stood out against the sky. I approached slow. My body felt exhausted, legs heavy, mouth very dry, hands shaking a little from the long effort and the stops. I drank the last of the filtered water. It helped some. At the base, the ladder access was a problem. The bottom section was partially collapsed, rusted through in places. A chain was wrapped around the remaining part and locked with a padlock. Old but solid. I shone the light on it, forcing it would make noise. It would take time too. I stood there thinking. Try to break the chain or keep moving. The noise could give me away if someone was close. While I was looking at the chain, I heard the voice for the first time. It came from the woods behind me, calm and ordinary, not loud or shouting, just conversational. Dale, it said my name plain, then again, hey Dale, like it was calling to someone he knew. The voice was steady, not rushed. It sent a cold feeling through me. He knew my name, must have seen paperwork at the cabin or at Pete's place. He had been tracking me on purpose. I did not answer. I stood still for a second, then backed away from the tower. This changed things. The voice meant he was close and deliberate. Trying the chain now would tell him exactly where I was. I abandoned the tower idea. I turned and moved away fast, but not running yet. I went back into the trees trying to put distance. My feet hit roots and I stumbled. I lost the path I had been following. Under stress, I doubled back in a way that brought me closer to the original road area than I wanted. I realized it after 10 minutes. The slope was dropping instead of staying high. I kept moving. My breathing was heavier now. The pipe felt heavier in my hand. I heard movement behind me again. I pushed on. Then I stumbled onto an old maintenance road. It was not on my map. It had tire ruts from service vehicles, the kind used for logging or utility work. The ground was packed dirt with clear tracks. It suggested infrequent but real traffic. This could lead somewhere useful. I followed it, staying to the side in case. The ruts made walking easier on my tired legs. I thought about the voice calling my name, calm like that. It stayed in my head, but I kept to the actions. Follow the road, listen for sounds, find a better spot. The night was deep now. I walked along the old road for a while. It curved through the woods. My body was worn down, but I continued, small steps. One after another. The pursuit had been long with the snaps and the light and the voice, but I was still moving. I checked behind me often. No immediate signs. The road gave a clearer path. I stayed alert, pipe ready, thinking about the next practical choice. The ruts went on. I followed them, slow, conserving energy. My hands still shook a bit from earlier, dehydration and the hours of walking. I looked for any side paths or signs of recent use. Nothing clear. I kept going. The woods on both sides stayed dark. I heard a faint rustle once, but it faded. I did not stop long. The old road felt like a small gain. It might lead to a main path or another structure. I thought about the truck, the cabin, Pete, all of it step by step. Now this road. I walked on into the night. I continued along the maintenance road. The tire ruts were uneven, but better than pushing through brush. My boots fit into the tracks in places. I shone the flashlight low every so often to check the ground. No fresh prints that I could see besides my own. The air was cooler now. My shirt stuck to my back from sweat earlier. I thought about finding water again. The filtered stuff from before was not enough. My throat felt rough. I stopped and listened. Nothing close. I kept walking. Every few minutes I stopped to listen. Once I heard a branch snap in the distance. I waited in place, pipe in hand. Nothing followed. I moved on. The road curved left and started a gentle climb. That matched what I remembered from the area. I stayed with it. My mind went over the mistakes from before. The wrong fork on the ridge. The time lost doubling back. Real things that happened when tired and in the dark. No big drama, just facts. I learned from them and kept straighter now. I walked for another long stretch. The exhaustion sat heavy in my legs. Each step took more effort. I ate the last piece of jerky. It helped a little with the hunger. The shaking in my hands had eased some, but I felt the crash from the earlier adrenaline. I kept the flashlight off more to save battery and stay hidden. The old road helped with that. It was a clear enough line to follow even in low light. I thought about the voice again. Dale, said so ordinary, like asking about the weather. That meant he had information. He knew who I was, probably looked around the cabin or Pete's place. It made the situation clearer. He was not random. I stayed practical. Do not stop, keep distance. Use the road. The pipe was a good find. Heavy enough to swing hard if it came to that. I held it ready. The night stretched on. I followed the ruts as they wound through the trees. At one point, the road crossed a small stream. I stopped and drank what I could, refilling the bottle. The water was cold and helped my throat. I rested there for 5 minutes, sitting on a rock. My muscles ached, but sitting felt good for a short time. I got up and continued. No time to stay long. Another rustle came from behind, farther off. I picked up the pace a bit. The road felt like it was leading somewhere. Tire ruts meant vehicles used it sometimes. Maybe a ranger or maintenance crew. That could mean help if I stayed on it. I kept walking. My thoughts stayed on the next actions. Watch footing. Listen. Move quiet. The pursuit had intervals of quiet and then those signs. I handled them one at a time. Hours seemed to pass. The dark was full. I lost track of exact time. My phone was in my pocket, but I did not check it often. The old logging road continued. It had small dips and rises. I followed the curves. Once I almost tripped on a root in the rut, but caught myself. Practical, stay alert. The tower idea was gone because of the noise and the voice. This road was the new path. I thought about reaching a main highway or a building, something with people or a phone. I kept on. The woods around the road stayed thick, no clear views. I heard the leaves disturbed once more, but it was off to the side. I did not investigate. Just noted and moved. My body was tired, but I had walked long distances before on jobs. This was like that. Keep going until the next stop. The pipe rested on my shoulder when not needed. It was practical weight. The road widened a little in spots. I saw older tire marks faded, infrequent use but real. That gave a bit of hope. I followed it steady. My breathing was even now. The close call in the undergrowth earlier stayed as a reminder. Count, breathe, stay still. It worked then. I would use the same if needed again. No big thoughts, just the actions. I walked deeper into the night along the old maintenance road. The ruts guided me, step after step. Listen, adjust. The pursuit signs came at intervals, but I kept ahead, exhausted but moving. This was the way through, small choices, practical ones. I continued on the road as the night went on. I kept walking the same way for a long time. The ruts stayed clear enough. I stepped in them when they lined up with my boots. My left leg felt a bit sorer from one of the earlier stumbles, but I kept the pace even. I stopped to listen every so often. Nothing new came. The pipe stayed in my right hand most of the time. I switched to the left when my arm got tired. The night air moved through the trees, making small sounds, but nothing that sounded like footsteps. I drank from the bottle again when I crossed another wet spot. The water level was going down, but I managed it. I thought about the man at the tree line when I first entered the woods. He had just stood there watching, not chasing right away, but he was there. That fact stayed with me as I walked. The road curved again. I followed it. My shoulders ached from the bag in the pipe. I adjusted the strap. Small things like that helped. I checked the ground ahead with the flashlight for a few seconds, then turned it off. No obstacles. I kept going. The tiredness in my legs was steady now, not sudden. Just there with every step. I remembered the climb up the ridge and the wrong turns. Each one had cost time, but I had corrected them. This road felt better, clearer path. I stayed on it. I walked for another stretch. The dark did not change much. I lost track of how many hours, but it felt long. My feet hurt inside the boots. I thought about taking them off for a minute, but that was not practical out here. I kept moving. Listen, step, listen. The intervals of quiet were longer now. Maybe he had lost the trail after the voice at the tower, or maybe not. I stayed ready. The pipe was there if needed. I held it and continued. I continued along the old maintenance road. The tire ruts were clear in the packed dirt under my boots. I placed one foot in front of the other at a steady pace. My legs felt heavy after all the walking through the woods. The heavy pipe rested on my right shoulder. It was solid and gave me something to hold on to. The night air was cool. I listened every few minutes. The woods on both sides stayed dark and quiet for long stretches. I thought about the voice from earlier at the tower. It had said my name in a plain way. That meant he knew who I was and had been following on purpose. I kept moving forward along the ruts. The road curved gently to the left. I followed it without changing speed. My boots fit into the tracks in places. The ground had small dips where rain had washed through before. I stepped around the deeper ones. My water bottle was low. I took small sips when I felt thirsty. No need to finish it all at once. I stopped once beside a tree and rested my back against it for a short time. My breathing slowed down. Then I started walking again. The pipe felt a bit heavier now, but I kept it ready in my hand when the road got darker. I heard a faint sound behind me after some time. It might have been leaves or a branch. I stopped and turned my head to listen. Nothing clear. I waited a full minute. Then I continued. The ruts led straight for a while. I shone my flashlight low on the ground for a few seconds to check ahead. No new prints besides mine. I turned it off again to save the battery. My hands were steady enough. The tiredness was there in my legs and back, but I kept going. Small steps. Practical ones. Get down this road and find a way out. Time went by slow. The dark felt complete around me. I thought about the ridge earlier and the wrong turns I had made. Doubling back had taken time, but it was done. Now this road was clearer. The tire marks showed that vehicles came through here sometimes. That gave a bit of a plan. Follow it until it led somewhere useful. I checked behind me again. Still nothing. My shirt felt damp from earlier sweat. The night cooled it down. After more walking, the sounds started again. Footsteps on the road surface. They were steady and getting closer. I picked up my pace a little, not running yet, just faster walking. The ruts helped me move without tripping. I held the pipe tighter. The ditch on the left side of the road was deeper in this section. Trees were thick on the right. I stayed near the ditch edge. The footsteps gained ground. I could hear them plain now. He was catching up. I did not stop to look back right away. I kept moving until the steps were close. Then I turned. The man was there in the low light. Medium build, dark jacket, same as before, blood on the clothes. He came forward without saying much. The confrontation happened fast. He reached for me. I swung the pipe at his arm. It hit with a solid sound. He made a grunt and grabbed at my shoulder. We went down near the edge of the ditch. It was physical and messy. His hands held on tight. I twisted my body and hit him again with the pipe on the leg. He made another sound. We rolled on the ground. Dirt got on my clothes. I used the drop-off of the ditch. I pushed him toward it. His foot slipped on the uneven edge and he went down part way into the ditch. The terrain helped. The side was loose and gave under his weight. I swung the pipe once more at his shoulder area. It connected. He yelled in a plain way from the pain. I did not stay to check how bad it was. I got to my feet quick. My leg hurt where he had grabbed it. I left him there in the ditch and moved down the road. I walked fast at first. Then I ran when my legs allowed. The pipe stayed in my hand. My breath came harder. The road ruts passed under my boots. I listened as I went. No immediate sounds of him following. The hits in the ditch had slowed him. I slowed to a fast walk after some distance. My hands shook a little. I drank the rest of the water. It helped my throat. I kept moving. The night was still dark, but I could feel the time passing. I followed the logging road for a long stretch. The curves were gentle. I stayed in the middle where the ruts were clearest. My legs ached with each step. The earlier climb through the woods and the close calls had worn me down. I thought about the pipe find at the old shed. It had been useful, practical. I held it ready, but my arm was tired. I switched hands for a while. The ground felt firmer here. No new branches snapping that I could hear. I checked over my shoulder often. Nothing showed. Dawn started to come slow. The sky lightened a bit above the trees. I kept walking. The road went on. My boots were dirty and my clothes torn in small spots from the brush earlier. I thought about the truck back on the gravel road, the stalled engine, the walk to the tower, all the small decisions. Now this road had led me this far. I drank from a small puddle in a rut when I found one. The water was not great, but it was something. I continued. The ruts led toward thinner trees. The light grew. I saw the end of the old road where it met a two-lane highway. Blacktop stretched left and right. It was empty. No cars yet. Near dawn. I stood there for a short time catching my breath. Then I started walking along the shoulder. The pavement felt different under my boots after the dirt road. Harder. I carried the pipe still. No reason to leave it yet. My body felt worn. Each step took effort, but I kept going toward the direction of town. After some time on the highway, a truck came into view. It was an early morning one. I waved with my arm. The driver slowed and pulled over. He looked at me from the cab. I told him there had been trouble and I needed to get to town. He let me climb in. I sat with the pipe across my lap. The cab was warm. He started driving. I asked about his phone. There was signal now. I called the police and gave them the details. The cabin, the sounds at night, Pete's place with the overturned chair and smashed phone, the walk, the man on the road. They said they would send units. The truck brought me to a gas station on the edge of town. It was still closed but had a payphone outside. I used it to call again and wait. Police cars arrived after a while. I sat on the curb and answered their questions. I told them straight. The boot print pictures on my phone, the voice calling my name, the fight on the logging road. They took notes and looked at the phone. Search teams went out to the area. In the days after, they found Pete's body in a sleep bag. It was in the forest not far from his house, hidden in his own sleep bag. The signs at his place matched what I had seen. No one had been there when I checked, but the struggle had happened. I listened to the updates. The killer was not caught that night. They searched the woods and the logging road. They found the ditch area with signs of the fight, but no body. The man had gotten away. They looked for a long time. Manhunt went on, but his identity stayed unclear. No full confirmation. I finished the job details from town and went back to my regular work after some time. The days went on. At night, I still checked the doorknobs. I turn them slow to make sure they are locked tight. I listen for any footsteps outside. It is a small habit now, nothing else, just checking.